The year is 1861, November. 20 years ago, John Edward Gray recorded a skull of a new form of killer whale. The skull itself is 126,000 years old and the species declared extinct. Case closed. Or so we thought. 3 months ago, a new species of orca, no, pseudo-orca, washes ashore in the Danish town of Kalundborg. Its skull, an exact match of the extinct orca. This false killer whale has risen from the grave as Lazarus himself, and it will surely not be the last. The question becomes, how do we know when a species is truly extinct, and what more ruses does Mother Nature have in store for us? It would seem we have a mystery of natural history on our hands, and it is one that I am sure to get to the bottom of. An animal is extinct when there are no living members of the species anymore. We know this. The opposite of this is extant, meaning they are still around. A lot of cases of extant versus extinct are obvious, but some cases become very blurry, and some are so blurry the rules might not even work properly. Let's start with what we know. This is a Tyrannosaurus rex. It is a dinosaur. It is extinct. We know that. This is a sparrow. It is a dinosaur. It is not extinct. Wait, what? But dinosaurs are extinct. Yes, and also no. You see, birds are dinosaurs. They evolved from an ancestral species of dinosaur, and after a meteorite hit the Earth 66 million years ago, birds survived and the other dinosaurs did not. You may have heard a term in some other documentaries or YouTube videos, cough cough, like mine, cough cough, that use the exact phrase, the extinction of the non-avian dinosaurs. That's the phrase we now use since discovering that birds, or avians, are dinosaurs. This means that together, we have now concluded that birds are still alive and non-avian dinosaurs are extinct. We've drawn that line in the sand and it's mostly clear. But now, we've found the case of one specific dinosaur. It is significantly less clear. This bird is from Australia. It looks very similar to the kakapo of my home Aotearoa, New Zealand, but it isn't very related. And unlike the kakapo, this bird can fly, it just chooses not to. Its name is the night parrot, or midnight cockatoo, and it's part of a genus that includes ground parrots. It's unusual to see parrots that don't feel like flying, but this bird makes its home in the very dry and very dusty outback of Australia, where most of the plant life is spinifex grass. In 1912, there was an authenticated report of a sighting of this parrot, but then it disappeared without a trace, and it would not be spotted again for some time. Considering that this bird lives in one of the more hostile regions of the world for humans, in thick brush that it rarely leaves, it's not the biggest shock that we couldn't find them. But a few decades later, across the other side of the planet, something important was happening in the world of global conservation. I'm not sure if you are aware of this, but in the late 1930s through to the 1940s, there was a war. They called it the Second World War. As a result of this, an intergovernmental organization was created called the United Nations that aims to achieve international cooperation, and it was formally agreed that part of this international cooperation included revitalizing a means of global scientific and cultural cooperation. The proposed solution was to form an arm of the UN named the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, or UNESCO, which you may know from their creation of heritage site statuses around the world. The year is now 1948 in the city of Fontainebleau, France. Global representatives of both governments and conservation organizations have gathered, having been spurred into action by UNESCO, to create an international group that is dedicated solely to protecting nature. Documents were signed, a group was formed, and the organization we would come to know as the IUCN, or International Union for the Conservation of Nature, was born. That is a lot of organizations to run through, all focused on cooperating across borders and cultures, but the IUCN has produced, among other things, the Global Red List of Threatened Species. Historically, this is generally considered the go-to source on the conservation status and risk of extinction for species around the globe, and it is where we get the phrase endangered species from. Starting in 1966, this red list categorized how at risk of extinction animals were, with a tier system that is judged based on a variety of factors relative to the animal itself, including initial population size and rate of decline, right through to how fragmented the habitats of the species have become. These tiers included the term that everyone now knows, endangered species, which is defined as very high risk of extinction in the wild. Worse than that, you get critically endangered, which means on the brink of extinction as a species. Then we have the pieces we are looking at today. Extinct in the wild means that there are no longer any living individuals in their native habitat. These animals still exist in captivity though, such as zoos or are kept domestically for cultivation, so they are still around, but not where they naturally from. The final tier is extinct. Quote, "Beyond reasonable doubt, this species is no longer extant." So, what does beyond reasonable doubt look like? We looked at the Tyrannosaurus rex earlier, and we know that is extinct because its fossils stop appearing 66 million years ago with most other dinosaurs, and it would be a little obvious if there were still 5-ton dinosaur predators wandering North America. But it becomes so much harder to tell when an animal like the midnight cockatoo disappears, when we have a recorded sighting as recently as 1912. They could, by all means, still exist in the spinifex shrublands of the Australian outback. To figure out if the midnight cockatoo is truly gone, scientists must show that exhaustive surveys have been conducted in its known and likely habitats, and the surveys must be over an appropriate time frame based on the species' life cycle and ecology. Some groups suggest waiting at least 50 years of no sightings before declaring an animal extinct, but this is not a hard and fast rule, it's more of an easy and slow suggestion. This parrot was considered by many to be extinct, while some continued the search to find if more existed. Shane Parker, an ornithologist from the South Australian Museum, claims to have spotted a flock in 1979, but was unable to capture evidence. Then, in 1990, in Queensland, scientists found a midnight cockatoo that had unfortunately been hit by a car. Clearly, this species wasn't actually extinct as many had thought. In 2005, as part of a survey to assess the environmental impact for the development of a new outback iron mine, 3 of these parrots were spotted, without photographic evidence, but the detailed descriptions from the witnesses was accepted as confirmed sightings by scientific peers. A few more sightings, and unfortunately, no longer alive specimens were found over the course of a decade, before a living midnight cockatoo was successfully captured and tagged for conservation. Now, this species is officially listed on the IUCN Red List, not as extinct, but as critically endangered. Feral cats are one reason that has been identified as a reason why these already reclusive birds are not doing great population-wise. But in 2024, a stronghold breeding ground of around 50 individuals was found in Western Australia. How have they survived? One theory is that this area is dingo capital, and that's not a great place to be if you're a feral cat. This story of finding species that were thought to be extinct is not unique to the midnight cockatoo. The takahe of my home was considered extinct for exactly 50 years, reaching a population as low as 118 individuals in 1982, but since the rediscovery and conservation efforts, the population is now around 500 individuals for this nationally recognized species. The very rare South American marsupial Monito del Monte, the Chacoan peccary, the false killer whale, and very recently, the Attenborough's echidna of Papua New Guinea are just some of the several species considered extinct at one point, but are actually still alive. We call these species Lazarus taxon, after the Bible story of Lazarus, who was resurrected after being deceased for 4 days. These Lazarus taxon are astonishing stories of survival, but perhaps none more astonishing than the curious case of the coelacanth. The coelacanth is a fish, a very old fish. Coelacanths evolved during the Devonian period about 410 million years ago, evolving alongside the first sharks, well before the first dinosaurs, even before the first reptiles. They had a great stint, and then they went extinct about 66 million years ago during, once again, the meteorite impact that wiped out the non-avian dinosaurs. This makes them one of the longest-running animal lineages in history. December 1938. Marjorie Courtney Latimer receives a call from some local fishermen in her role as curator of the East London Museum. And this call, East London isn't in England. Well, it is, but this one is in South Africa. Thanks. This call mentioned that the fishermen had pulled up some, quote, garbage fish. But previously, she had mentioned to them that if they did find anything unusual in their nets, they should call her, and so she went down to investigate. Imagine the surprise when sitting on the pier in front of her was a fresh fish that went extinct 66 million years ago. This discovery shook the world of zoology. This species was not just a Lazarus taxon, this was some kind of phantom or ghost. Ghost lineage is a real term. These are animals that have a big gap in their fossil record. The assumption is that the animals continue evolving as normal in between the fossils, but we don't know exactly what happened or where, because we don't have fossils from this time. Typically, ghost lineages occur when comparing fossils to other fossils, where we have a space of tens or even hundreds of millions of years with no fossil evidence of this group of animals. The same concept can be applied to the coelacanth, this fish that disappeared for 66 million years and could be retroactively extended to the false killer whale, where we initially found that 126,000-year-old skull before finding out they were still alive. This isn't the only animal we've discovered in fossils first. Several of the Lazarus taxon we already looked at were first discovered as fossils. Chinchilla rats, named after chinchillas, not actually chinchillas, were first introduced to Western science after their remains were found in an Incan tomb in South America. While technically not fossils, we found them as bones first. A different species of chinchilla rat was discovered alive in 1999, before that same first fossil species we found were photographed at, no joke, Machu Picchu itself. Going back even further than the coelacanth, there is a species of fly originally discovered Jurassic Park style, encased in amber 100 million years ago, before being found in Namibia in 2010. And at the most extreme end, Monoplacophora is a class of mollusks that was thought to have gone extinct 375 million years ago in the Devonian period. They live in deep waters off the coast of Costa Rica today. The evidence suggests that these animals are all the same species, genus, or class as the extinct animals that we are missing fossil records of, and it is astonishing that we have found any of them still alive. But there is another possibility that we need to consider. This is the possibility of convergent evolution, and it takes us to the case of the Aldabra rail. For those that have been following me for some time, you may know that my first video was on convergent evolution, and if you'd like to know more about how it all works, I'll leave a link to that below. Simply put, convergent evolution is the process in which two or more unrelated species evolve the same or very similar traits to one another. This often leads to animals that aren't related, having similar body plans, but it can also lead to an animal kinda seeming like they have re-evolved. Aldabra is the second largest atoll in the world. It sits off the coast of Africa and Madagascar and harbors some incredibly unique wildlife. And this atoll is home to the interesting convergent case of the Aldabra rail. This rail is not a species, but rather a subspecies of the white-throated rail, predominantly from Madagascar, except the Aldabra rail has evolved to make itself at home on the Aldabra atoll, becoming completely flightless. There is one problem with adapting to being flightless on a low-lying island in the middle of the Indian Ocean. It's a very easy location to flood. Nearly 140,000 years ago, this atoll experienced exactly that. The island flooded, lasting around 20,000 years, creating a complete turnover in the species that lived there and wiping out a different subspecies of flightless white-throated rail. The flooding ended, the atoll resurfaced, and soon the white-throated rail from Madagascar found it again. Then, these individuals enjoyed the atoll so much that they once again evolved to be flightless, and now we have the Aldabra rail. This rail is not the same animal as the original extinct subspecies from the atoll, but it is very, very nearly the same animal. Both were flightless and evolved the same body plans to live life on the atoll. This has led to a lot of headlines claiming that this species has, quote, re-evolved itself back from extinction. The Aldabra rail is now the most commonly touted story of a phenomenon with the most ridiculous name, Elvis taxon, because the new animal is an impersonator of the original. We have very few examples where we know for sure that this animal is an Elvis taxon, but these animals haven't brought themselves back from extinction and they aren't Lazarus taxon, because they are a separate animal that has found the same solutions to the same problems as animals that have disappeared. They just look the same. Only one animal in the world has the title of actually coming back from extinction. It's the morally questionable and unfortunately sad case of the Pyrenean Ibex. The Iberian Ibex is a mountain goat from the Iberian Peninsula, and it contains 4 subspecies, 2 of which are extinct, predominantly caused by humans. One of these subspecies was going extinct in the late 90s, and I mean 1990s. This was the Pyrenean Ibex. The last of these ibex was named Celia, and she had been living her life alone in a Spanish national park. Further north, in Scotland, a vaguely genetically similar animal had made global news. Dolly the sheep had become the first successfully cloned animal in history. This news reached an American biotechnical company who approached the Spanish government. Celia was the last of her kind. But what if she wasn't? Scientists took a sample of Celia's genome and cryogenically preserved them. They intended to use this DNA to follow the exact same procedure as Dolly the sheep through nuclear transfer to start cloning the Pyrenean Ibex. This would allow them to use a different subspecies of Iberian Ibex as the surrogate mother that would carry the baby clone to term, but the surrogate mother would not give a clone any of their own DNA. This way, the clone would genetically be a Pyrenean Ibex. In the year 2000, a year after the sample was taken, Celia, the last of her kind, was unfortunately lost to a falling tree. The Pyrenean Ibex was now extinct. After this extinction, the Spanish government agreed to allow the American company to attempt to clone Celia and take the first step in bringing the Ibex back. 3 years later, after nearly 60 attempts, the scientists succeeded. The cloned Ibex was born with a growth on its lung and survived for only 10 minutes. For 10 minutes, the Pyrenean Ibex was no longer extinct. The story of this Ibex is, in my opinion, pretty awful. Personally, I am torn about the ethics of cloning an animal like this, even an animal that's going extinct, but I'll leave the philosophical debate to you and maybe another video in the future. This Ibex is now the only animal to have ever truly come back from extinction and the only animal to go extinct twice. Extinction, as we've seen, is not something we are always sure about. Sometimes animals that we thought were extinct for millennia wash up on our shores. Some extinct animals could still be out there, although most animals are definitely gone. One thing we do know is that even with the power to clone species, extinction is pretty final. And our role in causing so many of these extinctions, which are happening every day, means that our role should also be able to prevent them in future. We may think that these animals are extinct, but sometimes it's worth it to keep looking, because maybe we'll find the last few of a species that we thought was gone, and together, we can bring them a little further away from the brink. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Ben the Quasi-Ecologist, this is the Natural World Explored, and until next time, stay curious, friends. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this natural history mystery. I love making these, and if you love watching them, I would greatly appreciate the old like, the old subscribe, the things that people always say in videos, so I can reach more people and we can all explore together. See you in the next one.